Hi guys, I'm your host Dorian VanCoppenolle, and welcome to the Dorian and Sheevam show. Today we have a very interesting topic for you about the Super Bowl.
I'm Sheevam Patel, and I'm going to introduce our two very special guests. First, we've got Communications Junior Ryden Trimble, and second, we've got Band Junior Sarang Shravan.
Okay, the first topic we have is the Chiefs' penalties. I know, Sarang, you have some very interesting thoughts about this, so if you want to step in and give your 2 cents, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought the penalties I thought the calls that the Chiefs had in the first half were not correct. I don't think it would have changed the outcome of the game because they really got killed in every single aspect of it, but it would have been at least a little bit closer because they did two of the Bucs' touchdown drives were extended because of I think 3 penalty calls on each one of them. So I thought it would have been at least a little bit of a closer game.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that because, especially on the Mike Evans touchdown, Brady still had a minute to go, but the way they were going down the field, especially after the Mike Evans penalty, bringing them all the way down the field, it still took them about 30, 40 seconds to get into the end zone. And if they wouldn't have had that same penalty in the time, maybe it would have ended in no points or a field goal at all, so that could completely change the game going down. Instead of them scoring 3 touchdowns in the first half, just 2, but I also feel like you have to look at the fact that the Chiefs could not get into the end zone. All they were doing was kicking field goals.
I think that the problem that the Chiefs had, I do think that a lot of the penalties were valid. I think that they were rightfully so called. And I know that this might be controversial, but I am almost certain that some of those pass interferences, they were valid pass interferences. And for that reason, I do think that it's a valid win for the Buccaneers in the first half of the game. I think those 3 touchdowns they scored, I do think that those were 3 true touchdowns. And either way, even if they weren't, the Chiefs weren't even stopping them. So it's not a problem of whether or not the penalties were going to happen. The outcome of this game was going to happen either way because the Chiefs' offense was so stagnant that I don't think anything could have stopped the Buccaneers from winning.
Yeah, there were some critical penalties, like the one 24. You touched on this previously with the. It wasn't a very good PI call, but it still he did make contact, so they get a 34-yard gain off the pass interference. You just can't have that.
And you also have on the other side of that, you have Brady and Gronk too, who've been together through so many Super Bowls. After this, Brady 7 Super Bowls, Gronk 4 Super Bowls, kind of not really piggybacking off Brady because, of course, he had those moments where 2 touchdowns. I feel like they definitely stepped up on this stage and just taking that early lead to where it was the point there was no way the Chiefs were going to come back the way they were playing the entire game. It seemed like the entire game, the whole Chiefs operation was just stagnant. I never saw them change anything up to the point where it really made an impact on the game. It just kind of kept flowing where the Bucs just had complete control. It was complete dominance.
Yes, this is actually, because you mentioned it, this is actually the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, high school, college, NFL, this is the first time he's ever not scored a touchdown in a game before. So it really shows you just how great, not just the Bucs defense played as the players, but also how great Todd Bowles' game plan was for them. Because the Chiefs' offense has never been dominated like this before. Because the last 3 years, we've seen them be the best in the league. And they've never lost by, I don't think Mahomes has ever lost by more than 1 score in his career.
It was, I think, double digits.
Yeah, so this is the worst loss of his career, 22-point loss. So you really have to give credit to the Bucs because they played. It wasn't just their offense that played well with Brady and Gronk and Antonio Brown too, but their defense played one of the best defensive efforts in Super Bowl history.
Yeah, I think to lose that bad, and that's the worst loss of his career, and to lose on that stage, that's definitely going to affect him. But I think that'll be really interesting next season to see how he comes back from such a loss on that big of a stage. It's going to be talked about all offseason. And also, I think a big connection with him and Antonio Brown. He played with Antonio Brown last season for the Patriots for 1 game. But I do think there was a connection there. Antonio Brown's stats this game weren't crazy, only 5 receptions, but he did get a touchdown.
Yeah, I think similar to what you said about Mahomes having the worst game of his career and having no help. I think it was kind of, I wouldn't say a wake-up call, but it was kind of a shock to see Mahomes play with that little help. But it was really a shocker to see the Chiefs' offensive weapons play that bad.
Yeah, so I will say the Chiefs, their weapons did sell. I think they were pretty atrocious this game. But I think one thing to note is these teams played, and I think it was week 12, which is not too long ago. It's about like a month ago or so, and the Chiefs tore them up that game. Tyreek Hill literally like harassed them. He literally like.
Well, actually, if you look at that game, the Bucs won the final 3 quarters, 24-10. So the Chiefs, they jumped out to a huge lead. I believe it was 17-0 when Tyreek went for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns in that quarter, the first quarter.
Yeah.
But since then, after that, the Bucs dominated them the entire way, and they were able to make it close because the final score was only 24.
That's the thing. I think whatever defensive adjustments they had for the Chiefs' weapons specifically, I mean, those are insane. Especially because they don't have to bring an all-out blitz to get pressure on Mahomes because their D-line is something other teams.
Yeah, they only had to throw like 4 people. They were not even blitzing half the time, and they were still getting pressure.
That's why they were able to shut them down so much, because when you can rush the passer that well with only 4, which they can do because with Vita Vea and Shaq Barrett and JPP, they can get after Mahomes, especially with an injured O-line. So they can drop 7 back into coverage.
The secondary can take care of the rest.
Exactly.
And the Buccaneers definitely learned from last game. Tyreek Hill went crazy, like you said. Mm-hmm. And this game, he was doubled on every play.
Yeah.
And it showed. It really showed that he didn't get much production. And they definitely learned from their. I think playing that Week 12 game really helped them.
And so now we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on, Ryden, because we're short on time. But there were other parts of the Super Bowl too, besides the game. So we can talk about the halftime show. I know, Sarang, you're a band major. So if you have anything you want to say about the weekend, I thought it was a very interesting performance, you could say. Kind of looked more like a TikTok to me. But you want to throw in your input there?
Yeah, I thought the halftime show was all right. It wasn't. I think when you look at like the all-time halftime shows, it's not one of the better ones that they've had in the history of the NFL. But it was still a good halftime show. I thought it was really cool how I think he put $7 million of his own money into producing the halftime show.
Yeah.
So I thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah, I had a lot of expectations for this halftime show. I saw the fact that he put in like $7 million of his own money, so I was a little disappointed by it because, like, all in all, I'd say the songs that he sang, I'd say those were some really good songs and they were his hits. But I think the execution of the show itself was just a little off because even if coronavirus had some guidelines that stopped him from doing certain things, like you said, they also had that many people on the field at a time. So I feel like they could have done more if those guidelines were allowing of that.
And besides the halftime show too, there were some interesting commercials. I don't think the ones this year compared with the commercial last year with the Smart Pack. I think that'll go down as my favorite commercial of all time, with a lot of family in that area. But Ryden, do you want to throw in any input? I know you're a communications major, talk about advertising a lot. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Ones?
So, for the first time in 37 years, Budweiser didn't have a commercial. And they stated that they wanted to relocate that investment towards those affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, which I do think is a good move and maybe even a better form of advertising than an ad would be, because now you're getting news about that. It's 30 for a 30-second Super Bowl ad. It would cost $5 million. So you have to think that a lot of these companies that are normally in the Super Bowl, they just think it'd be too risky this year with profits obviously down, and they don't. I mean, 30 seconds for $5 million, it probably isn't worth it.
Okay, now let's sum this up. And I feel like the most big question to ask is what's next for Brady and Mahomes? Like, where will these two take it from here now that Brady has been left in the spotlight and Mahomes has not been totally defeated, but this is definitely a blow on himself.
I think one thing about Patrick Mahomes is that he's a really hard worker. So last year, even when they won the Super Bowl, after they won the Super Bowl, he was working just as hard. So I don't think it was a matter of fact of mindset for Mahomes. I think it was really just maybe underestimating the other team, because the game changer in this game was fully the Buccaneers defense. And for that reason, I think it's not a Mahomes problem. I think it's a Chiefs problem that they have to fix to game plan for, I guess, any team with a defense that strong.
Strong, right? Any final comments?
Yeah, I definitely think both these teams will be contending next season. The Bucs do have some decisions to make regarding free agents, because they're going to have to pay Shaq Barrett, they're going to have to pay Chris Godwin, and they have a few other free agents. I believe Brady's contract was 2 years, $50 million, so he's under contract next season. Depending on how he feels about whether he should retire or not, barring injury, he could sign another extension. And then I believe the Chiefs they're all good in terms of everybody being signed. They just kind of have to. I think it was kind of a wake up call for them, where they need to rebuild their offensive line a little bit, because Mitchell Schwartz, Eric Fisher, they're getting kind of old. They've been in the league for a while, and if they're getting hurt like this in big games, then and you can see how much of a problem it poses when they're playing an elite pass rush. So I think they both have a couple of things to fix, but they'll definitely both be contending next year.
And Ryden, you have any final comments?
Yeah, I agree with what Sarang said. I mean, O-line is one of the most important things for a football team to have. People like Andrew Luck have retired because of how bad an O-line was, and it can really kill quarterbacks like Joe Burrow. So I think a key issue for making sure Mahomes stays as good as he is having an offensive line that can protect him well. And if they get an offensive line, I could definitely see them coming back to the Super Bowl next year and for many more years after that.
And we'll thank both of you guys for coming on today. And that's everything we have here. Let's wrap this up. I will see everyone viewing next week.
Audio Jungle.